there, ref. That's, he got the ball. Good afternoon, Tottenham fans, and happy Sunday to you all. Hopefully you're all doing well, and hopefully you've all had a great day. A big game for Tottenham Hotspur today, kicking off at 4:30 against Everton. And with the fixtures we've got coming up, we need to put points on the board today. So for me, it's an absolute huge game for Tottenham. But look, hopefully, most importantly, you guys are all safe and sound, enjoying your Sundays. No Jack at the minute. I was 15 minutes late because I've been trying to ring him and stuff to try and get him out of bed. Not sure what's going on there. To be fair, I didn't even know the clocks were going back an hour. I went to bed last night at 1 o'clock, looked at my phone half an hour later. It was only 12:30, and I started scratching my head like what's going on and all. And then I realized that the clocks went back an hour. So that's probably why Jack's still in bed at the minute, because I didn't communicate it, because I didn't even know it myself, guys. Hopefully no one else got caught out with the clocks going back. But Dermot, how are you this afternoon, my man?
Yeah, fine. Just wait for my shopping to turn up. I think it's going to turn up anytime now. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the game today.
I like a good food shop. Did you get anything nice?
Got a nice few steaks and a few bits and pieces. Nice,
you gotta get a treat.
Might have a nice steak tonight. Yeah, I'm looking forward to today's game. You always look forward to a Spurs game, but I'm nervous as hell. I am nervous. We don't do well away there, and that's making me nervous.
Do you know what? As poor as we've been in some games, I do look forward to Tottenham games a lot more this year than what I have last year and stuff. You know, I do rock up with a better mood and stuff like that, because I know it's going to be a dogfight, but we're still in games, which I think is a huge plus. With Ange Postecoglou, you sort of you were going into games going, well, this could be over within 10 minutes, and the rest of the 80 minutes is going to be horseshit. So, you know, look, at least, you know, we're looking forward to coming into these games.
Well, at least we're consistent, Dave. At least we're consistent with it, to be fair.
True. And how are you, Stevie? Good to see you, my man. You've been up early this morning, haven't you?
Oh yeah, for sure, right? And by the way, I did get caught out because I actually didn't know the clocks were rolling back either, right? So I mean, when we were talking, I was like, well, wait a second, what the hell's going on? But it's all good though. So listen, man, I'm absolutely fired up because at the end of the day, man, our road form has actually been really brilliant this season. And then that being said, it's like this is kind of a must-win today, considering the points we've dropped and considering the schedule ahead. So this has to be the day.
You're absolutely spot on about our away form, because initially I was sort of going into this game a bit like, but then, you know, I think I went and done some digging into the away form. 71% of our points this season have come away from home. We're unbeaten away from home. We've got the best Premier League record away from home this season. So they're all good omens and cause for optimism heading into today's game. But as we know, with Everton, David Moyes teams, and here's a bad omen, we haven't beaten Everton away in over 4 years. So that sort of shows how difficult of a task it is going to be today. Combined by some of the lack of quality we have up front, it's going to be an absolute dogfight. Let's welcome a few people in at home, and then we will crack on. What we've got on the talking points today is a little bit about what's not clicking right now for Tottenham. We'll have a discussion on that. You know, does Frank maybe need to change it up a little bit tactically to help Tottenham rediscover the early season form? We're also going to talk about, you know, are we struggling to cope with Europe and the Premier and the domestic campaign? We're also going to talk about the fixtures coming up, you know, why today's game is a must win and all that sort of jazz. And what else have we got here now for the season? Yeah, about our defense as well. You know, that's sort of been the basis behind all of our points. Do we see that continuing through this run that we've got coming up? And we're also going to talk about, you know, a bit about the front line. Then we've got chats about Colin Muani, that midfield, which seems to be still a massive sticking point with fans and stuff like that. So we have a lot to talk about today, guys. But let's welcome in some people. We've got Harvey Burgess in the house. Harvey Burgess has become a new YouTube member. I really do appreciate that, my man. Thank you very, very much for the support, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So big yourself up. Look, we run fan shows every week. It'd be nice to get you to come on and have it, share your opinion at the end of it. That's what they're all for. That's what they're there for. So big up, Harvey. Good to see you, my man. Big up, DJ Samuel. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. How's life in London treating you? Do let me know. We also, Dermot saying big up to everyone. We also have Sean Brown. A bit nervous for this game, but the boys seem to lack some confidence. But nonetheless, come on, you Spurs. Yeah, absolutely right, Sean. We are lacking a little bit of confidence. But I'd also say, is it confidence or is it just consistency? And when it comes down to consistency, how much of it is down to your desire and hunger to win? You know, that's what I would argue, Sean. We've got Wembley one afternoon, boys, all in the chat, not feeling optimistic about this one after midweek and Everton's resurgence in their new stadium. They haven't been beaten at home in their new stadium, and I think they've only conceded 2 goals there in 4 games. So it shows how tough, again, it's going to be. A Grealish-inspired 2-0 loss incoming, I fear. Wembley 1. Look, let's not try and manifest these things today. You know, I'm a big believer in manifestation. I manifested winning the Europa League, so hopefully, we can manifest a win here today. Big up Wembley. Stevie's also saying good morning to you guys in the chat, so make sure you say good, hi to them boys as well. Rooty Toot says Richie usually digs out a goal or 2 against his old club. Not holding my breath, but here's hoping. Do you know what? There's 2 games every year I would consider giving a minute. Everton and Liverpool.
Yeah,
loves
100%.
them too, absolutely loves it. But look, he is dog shit, and that's the huge problem. What I will say is Muani for the 22 minutes cameo he had against Monaco, you know, it was it nearly brought tears to my eyes when I went to bed. I was seeing him link up with other players, and I was like, oh my God, it's so much better than what we've seen in the last few years. But some of the players we've had has made the striker role look so difficult. But big up, Rooty too. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. And he says, no bother, Dave. No worries. It will be worth waiting for as usual. Big up, Rooty. I really appreciate that. Very, very kind words. Wayne Bonner says, good afternoon, lads. Hope you're all well. I'm going for a 2-2 draw today. We have a good defense, weak attack. Sarr needs to start in the midfield with Simons out left.
Yep.
But I'm glad, Wayne Bonner, that you are on my line of thinking on that. I do get a lot of pushback. Snow Cyper Gaming, if you are watching, I know you like to push back on that. But you never actually give me reasons on why it's not going to work. So maybe I'd ask you for some reasons why you think that won't work. We've got Shem Tam in the house. Morning, Jack. Afternoon, Dave. Get that giant pot of coffee and throw it on him instead, because drinking it isn't helping him. I don't even think he was out last night, to be fair. He's actually like dog sitting or house sitting or something like that. That's what he's at the minute. So to be fair, he's definitely wasn't out. I think it's actually more to do. I didn't communicate with anyone that the clocks were going back, to be honest, because I didn't know. So anyone that's not here today, it is my fault. By the way, speaking of not here today, Soren isn't here today because he has some family matters to take care of. So he's off, doing stuff with family. And also Drew, he's going through a few bits and pieces at the minute as well. So he's not here, again today. And no doubt we'll have him back when he's feeling a little bit better as well. Big up, Polly. Good to see you. Says, come on, you Spurs. Great to see you. William Webb says, Hearts 3-1 up on Celtic in Scotland. 5 to go. 8 points ahead now. Absolutely unbelievable if you're a Hearts fan. Absolutely unbelievable. Sean Alex, everyone lost except United. So a great opportunity. What I will say is them fuckers are coming into form at the right time as we've got them coming up, Shawnee. It's so annoying. And they'll be motivated off the back of the Europa League loss last season as well. Let's not forget that. We are Spurs TV. Let's go, Tottenham. Great to see you, lad. Hopefully you're keeping well. Lazy 8 is in the house. Big up, Nick. And by the way, he's got Kevin Danzo song brewing for all of you guys, so stay tuned. He says, wait, what clocks went back? This doesn't happen in the civilized world until next weekend. Well, over this side of the world, I suppose it happened this weekend. I always thought it was Halloween weekend when they went back as well, but it seems like that's not the case, Nick. Mark McDermott says, afternoon, Dave. Let's hope for a performance day. At the very least, come on, you Spurs. I think that's what many people are hoping for. What I will say, Mark, though, is with how crap we are going forward, it is going to make performances look lethargic, look more scrappy, more like a dogfight, because we're just not fluid going forward. Like the amount of breakaways and promising positions we get in, we never end up with a shot on target. And that leads to people being frustrated and annoyed and stuff. Because at the end of the day, we watched a beautiful game to try and see your team go and score some goals, show some craft, show some creativity, show some guile with a little bit of quality. And we're not seeing a lot of that at the minute. But how much of it is actually down to Frank and how much of it actually is down to we're Post-Kane and Son here, and we just don't have them guys in the team to carry us right now. And we're looking for guys to step up and be them sort of players, Mark. Big up. Good to see you. We also have Spurfict in the house, 81. I fear for us physically. We need to match their intensity. Do you know what I would say is perfect? In years gone by, I would have feared going into physical games and stuff like that. But I do think this squad has a lot of players that can sort of hold their own now. In that regard, which means we're not being as physically dominated or thrown around like we were in previous seasons. But I do hear what you're saying. They are going to be very, very physical up there today. J-Mac, big up, Davey, lad. Steve Dermo, come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Make sure I'm not missing anyone. Slim by Tubbs, big up to one and all. Come on, you Spurs. Iceman, big up to Steve, Dave, and Dermo, and everyone in the chat. Great to see you. Danny Darko, good to see you. Oi, oi, Kois, big up, Dave, and panel, and all the yids in the chat. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. We also have Abby in the house says we need to win today. No excuse. Absolutely spot on. Kaylee Davies, member for 27 months. Kaylee, I'm not sure if you were supposed to put chat in on that. If you were, just put it into the comment section and I'll bring it up. But good to see you, Kaylee. Hopefully you're keeping well. You might have more communication with Jack than me today, so you might know where Jack is. Let me know, Kaylee. Good to see you. We also have Noel in the house. Big up, gang. Match day. Come on, you Spurs. 2-1 Spurs. Let's fly today. Absolutely spot on. And Danny Dark also becoming a new member as well. Very, very kind of you, Danny. Danny, I know you have a lot to say on Vicario. It'd be nice to get you on a fan show and let you sort of air your views or your grievances when it comes to a lot of the Vicario opinion. Good to see you in the building and really appreciate the support, my man. Big up, Daniel. Great to see you in the house as well. Hopefully you're keeping well. DB, good to see you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well. Are you off the lawnmower today? Let me know. We've also got Ribeye in the house. Big up, Ribsy. Hey, all legends. Come on, you Spurs. Hopefully you and Oliver are ready for today's game, Ribsy. And hopefully the wife is keeping well as well. I may text you after, actually. Ray says, big up, guys. Nervous about today's game. I think people are underestimating Everton today. Look, I'm not underestimating them. It's going to be a difficult game. Look, I've sort of accepted where we are right now. When you don't have a Kane or a Son type up front that can rip teams open from open play, even take just the half chances or create that bit of magic in games to go and win you 3 points. When you don't have that player, every game is just going to be a dogfight. Every game is going to be a scrap. And I've sort of realized that to a large degree. Now, is it going to stop me being upset when we lose? No. Is it going to stop me asking questions or critiquing the team and stuff when we lose? No, of course not. However, am I going to throw my toys out the pram and start demanding this manager out and that manager out? No, of course I'm not going to do that either, Rain. Good to see you. Big up, Banjo. Hopefully you're keeping well. We also have Anna Cole in the house. Come on, you Spurs. Andy says, big up, gents. I feel this is a 6-pointer, but happy with a draw. Me, 3-1 Spurs. I agree with you. I think it's a huge 6-pointer. And I know some people might not understand or say, we're saying that now and it's a bit dramatic, but you have to look at what's coming down the road. Realize how important this game is today. Big up, Patricia says, come on, you Spurs. Good to see you, Patsy. Hopefully you're keeping well. And by the way, Patsy is what, short for what Irish people call Patricia over here. Tottenham Rangers says Brentford playing one-touch football, bopping around, fluid attacking. They are far from free from the shackles of Frank. I won't finish that. Look, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to think. But look, fair enough. We got Joe Blogs, Evening Dave on Dermo and Steve-O. Everton are going to be a difficult team to break down at home. We need an early lucky goal or two, or it's going to be another turgid watch. The problem is, no one knows where the next goal is going to come from. We've so many problems across that front line. It's going to cause us huge problems. Eugene, good to see you. Eugene Caladeva. What a last name that is. That's a cracker. Sounds sexy on the tongue as well. Big up to all Spurs supporters here. A great day for a win. It's time we really showed up. Absolutely spot on. We also have Slow Jamrod. Good afternoon to you, sir. Along with Logan as well. Good afternoon to you as well. We have Tottenham Trev's football talk. Why is it we think we're better than Everton? Realize is going to run Grealish, I think he's maybe saying there, is going to run right today. Thing is, we are better than Everton. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. So, look, losing to Everton, they've been scrapping relegation for years. I mean, we're not that bad, to be fair. Eugene says, Dave, you still have toys left? I actually don't, to be fair. I was one of them child. I was miserable. I didn't want to play with toys. If anyone gave me toys, I was like, what's that? Get me some adult things to do, or get me a console or a game or something like that. I didn't even watch cartoons, and it's not like I was deprived. My parents were good parents and stuff. I suppose I just didn't like being a kid, I suppose, in general. All these childish things. I just loved football. I wanted to be in the adult world. So good to see everybody. We also have Big Lebowski as well. Good to see you in the building. And then Ribsy also says, hope our away fans are up for it. They usually are. In fairness, they I remember against, what was it, Fulham? Was it last year? I think we were on a barren spell, and they were spine-tingling for about the first 10, 20 minutes. It was absolutely unbelievable, the backing that they gave the team. What I will say is a lot of them were on their phones in the stands against Monaco, which maybe leads to not being as entertained or stuff like that, which I can understand if you're forking out a lot of money to follow this club everywhere. But Stevie, look, let's get into it. Me and you'll kick it off.
Yeah.
What's not quite clicking right now in terms of recent performances and results for Tottenham Hotspur? Is it a tactical issue like formation, maybe the pressing, how we build up, or more of a personnel problem in terms of the injuries that we're missing, lack of quality in key positions?
I think it could be a combination of both. And I'm going to start off by saying that this issue is a Tottenham Hotspur issue, considering of the lack of urgency in the summer transfer windows. Understanding that Son was going to leave, and they wasted the first portion of the transfer window by not actually getting ahead of this type of problem. And so, and then all the time that they wasted trying to get in a couple of players that ultimately resulted to nil. And so now all of a sudden you're left because we don't have replacements, for Son on the left hand. We still haven't really, utilized the striker position. And so from that point, Thomas Frank only can do so much with the players that he has at his disposal, because quite honestly, there are a few guys who are just not good enough to play at this level. And we've actually seen that, play out. The other thing that I will say is this also does kind of fall on Thomas Frank to an extent, meaning that, week after week after week, we still see the same formation. We still see the things that he's trying to do, and yet it almost feels like it's a square peg going into the round hole. Understanding that he doesn't have guys that he can necessarily trust, and from that standpoint, we look very very obvious to defend against, right? So from that standpoint, it could be a combination of those two things. But that being said, me personally, I just feel like it's entirely way too early in the Frank era to really kind of put it on his shoulders. That being said, there are certain things that were out of his control when it comes to personnel, and so unfortunately, this is exactly what we have to live with until the January window. So from that standpoint, I guess it's going to be up to Thomas Frank to fix this, right? If we're still running the same formation, knowing that we don't have anybody on the left, or having a guy up top where anybody can play through, then yeah, that's going to fall on them. So maybe this might be the opportunity to make a formation change where you can actually eliminate some of these weaknesses, and maybe all of a sudden the attack starts to fire on all cylinders. But that being said, for me, as of right now, it's a personnel issue.
100%. I think with Tottenham Hotspur, because of the lack of quality we have, in general throughout the squad, or we have had in years gone by, you would argue this season is probably better than what we've seen in recent seasons, right, in terms of quality and stuff like that. But I almost think because we know there's such a huge lack of quality in terms of the teams that we're trying to compete with, it almost feels like we're asking the manager to make up that extra bit of quality that we lack on the football pitch.
Yeah.
Through tactical nous and stuff like that. But sometimes, you are only as good as the players that you can put out there, the players that can go out and carry your instructions, the players that have the ability in the final third. And, I think there was a massive praise of Thomas Frank, he develops all these players. And, I put one question out there: how much of it was actually down to the Brentford scouting model and the way it's set up to find undervalued players in the market that are going to reach a certain potential? And I think we're seeing it was more down to their system and their scouting system than Thomas Frank developing players, because everyone that was pouting that message last season, they're all screaming for him to be backed, again in January. So I think there's been a massive realization that there's not a lot of quality there. However, when things aren't going right, naturally, everyone turns to the manager. But I think at some point, I've been trying to say this, and I've been consistent with this under Jose, Conte, Post-Kane, and I'm going to be the same at Frank. There's only so much they can do. There's only so much they can deliver.
Correct.
At some point, they also need help from the football club. And I would argue, I think now we need to start being maybe the smarter guys in the room and realizing that you could change Frank tomorrow. The next guy coming in is going to suffer the same problems, regardless of the philosophy, the style, the mentality, or whatever way he wants to set up. Because the big thing is, you're seeing from last season to this season, nothing has changed across the attack line. Absolutely nothing. And both managers have different styles, different philosophies, different way of setting up, and et cetera, but you're still seeing the same crap, which then at some point you have to go, well, it's not the manager. We've tried changing that. We're still yielding the same results. It's now down to the lack of quality. It's now down to the 200 million we spent across the front line, not replacing Harry Kane, not replacing Son. And at what time do you give the manager, sort of allow him to get to the transfer window regardless of results and stuff like that? Let me know what you think on that, Spurs fans. But in general, I agree with you, Stevie. I think it is down to the lack of quality in forward positions. I've been saying this for a number of years now. In fact, many people go, Dave, you've got to get over Harry Kane. I'll get over Harry Kane when the club produce me someone that can go and score me goals. It doesn't have to be to the Harry Kane level. But, I can only get over a guy when they replaced him, and they are still struggling. They let Son go last year, I'd argue. Some of the space that Udebers had this year, which Son delivered that bit of extra quality, I would argue, yes. So we're really lacking, in terms of the forward areas, players that can create chances, but also players that can go and win you games. And it's a huge problem for Thomas Frank. Now, I would argue, I don't think he's helped himself, Steve, I think not starting Papamatta in the 10 has been a huge problem for me. He said in the pre-match press conference, I've no reason why I've dropped them. I just think other players have played better in that position. Well, Bergvall hasn't. Xavi Simons hasn't. And look, I get he has to try if he wants to try and, get that sort of creative number 10 in there. But the reality is, since he's took Sarr out, we've lost the ability to be able to go and win games. And although Sarr isn't your natural number 10, he goes and wins ball higher up the pitch, which means then you only have to turn it over on one pass and you're in. And Jurgen Klopp famously said, when he was at Liverpool, sometimes pressing high and winning the ball over is just as good as having 3 or 4 creative players. It's just as effective. And I think that's one thing that maybe Thomas Frank needs to reassess. But I would also argue, why is he not switched up? That's something he was really sort of known for at Brentford, adapting to the opposition. Something Spurs fans were really excited to see, and something they haven't seen since he's been here. Maybe bar the PSG game. But if we're not clicking right now playing this formation, why not go back and try what he did against PSG? Move Kudus centrally where he can go and cause damage. Put someone else up beside him and put Papamatta in that number 10 just to give that leg. So if we do break or we go long ball and the boys win something, Papamatta can pick it up and we can go at them. I'm at that point where maybe, and look, I'm not a big fan of a back 5, by the way. I absolutely hate it, and Jack knows this. But sometimes it's a needs must, right? So that's where I'm at. I don't think Frank is helping himself in terms of what he's got at his disposal, because you've got to remember, we have brought Xavi Simons and Kudus to try and help improve this problem. He hasn't really used Xavi Simons to the. You would argue Xavi Simons hasn't been great either, but he's not exactly extracting the best out of him either. So I do think it's a bit of a two-pronged problem, but I think Thomas Frank would help himself by changing up, and if that doesn't work, then you go, okay, at least he's trying. And I think he will lose more fans if he doesn't, because in years gone by, when we've had your Jose, your Conte, we've had your Post-Kane, they're very stubborn, right? They believe in what they believe in. They don't like changing it up. If Frank ends up going along with that as well, fans will get off board very, very quickly. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. But Steve, also I'd argue, that mid-press against Monaco, that low block or mid-block, it's absolutely pointless if you don't get any pressure on the ball. You're just allowing that ball to come straight into your box like we've done against Monaco. He needs to sort that out. He needs to change that because if not, it's going to yield bigger problems against better teams that are coming. But Steve, in your eyes, what is the one thing you think he could change tactically to maybe help Spurs rediscover that early season spark? And you guys at home, please let me know in the comments as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was one of those guys that was excited about the appointment of Frank because he absolutely does adapt. And now, granted, it's a little bit different because Brentford had a little bit more quality in the attacking third, so it gave him a little bit more leeway. But that being said, when there's an obvious glaring weakness in your attacking 3, eliminate the weakness, right? Go to a 3-4-2-1. You can have Xavi and Kudus playing underneath Kolo Muani up top. And then from that standpoint, you're going to get Pedro Porro in the attack, playing keeping the width out the outside. But naturally, it's going to allow João Palhinha and whoever you're going to have in that double pivot play higher up the pitch, and so you're naturally going to have that underneath cover. So that does allow a guy like Xavi Simons the freedom underneath, or a Kudus or a Papsar, whichever way you're going to go. And by the way, it's going to be that width. And also the space centrally that it actually is going to free attackers, which is going to allow more shots on goal, right? So at the very least, at least moving to a formation change and finding out exactly if you can be a little bit more direct, being a little bit more goal dangerous with some of your best players and trying to actually plug gaps on certain sides of the pitch, because you're absolutely right. Last season, it was the left-hand side that actually had the strength and the right-hand side that was absolutely dog shit. And now this year, it's just reversed to the other side, right? And so we're still having the exact same problems. There is no chemistry. There is no continuity within the attacking 3. And unfortunately, since we got a guy like Xavi Simons, he's still like Thomas Franks has no idea what his best position is yet, right? So as of right now, it's still moving parts. It's still fluctuating. And in the meantime, we're dropping points that we have no business dropping because of it, right? So from that standpoint, I agree with you. It's like when we saw that against PSG, we looked absolutely awesome, against one of the best teams in the world. And it's like, when is this tactical change going to come in? Because as of right now, we're so easy to defend against. And it seems week after week after week, this is now becoming a trend where now you actually have to start a little bit asking these questions about Thomas Frank because he has the personnel to pull it off. Not only does he have the personnel to pull off, but we're actually a better team when we play in that formation because now we're not worried about who the hell is going to be playing on the left side or who's going to be playing up top. We know exactly who they're going to be.
Well, I also argue, I think he's got more personnel, which gives him the flexibility to change it up. Maybe in seasons gone by, managers have sort of been hamstrung with what they can do. Now, of course, you can change it up, but sometimes that lack of quality can still come back. Fine. But I'd argue I'd like to see him try something different and not be as stubborn as maybe previous managers were, because I know how frustrated fans got, and you can already see it starting to happen. But look, let's take a couple of comments from the chat and we'll keep kicking on, Stevie. Right now, it's just me and you. Solo Rangers today, my man. We've got Wayne Bonner, member for 50 months. Any news on Romero's injury? I think Thomas Frank said in the pre-match press conference that he's back training on grass. He probably should be back for the next game when, away to Newcastle. I think he was probably held back today as a precaution. Big up. Good to see you in the building. Ange Ball, good to see you. Hope you're keeping well. Along with Alberto, Scotty Hynam, good to see you as well, sir. We also have Paddy Higgins. All right, lad, hope you're well. Back for the game. Big up, Paddy Higgins. Good to see you. I'm always keeping well. Even when I'm angry and down, I'm still keeping well, my man. J-Mac says, in my opinion, it's more tactical than personnel. There's so much missing from our attacking play to progress the ball and to be a consistent goal threat. I hear a few people saying this, man. I'm sorry, let me take the chewing out. How rude of me. I hear what you're saying on this one, J-Mac. But for me, when I look at it, I think a lot of the build-up play is okay. Don't get me wrong. Could we be more expansive with some of our passing at times? Could we put more balls in behind for our front players to run onto? Yeah, of course we can. But, anytime the ball ends up at the cam's feet, striker's feet, left winger's feet, nothing comes of it. And they do see a fair amount of ball. It's not like we're struggling to get the ball to them. They get the ball. They just don't do an awful lot off the back of it, Jay. That's my opinion on it. Big up, man. We've also got Howie in the house. He says, big up, Dave. For God's sake, let's give Frank a fighting chance to form a squad, including personnel upgrades. No, 100%. Look, I definitely agree with that. And look, I also, I know that he needs another transfer window in terms of bringing in 4 players. I reckon he's just as frustrated with what's going on up in the front line, just as much as the fans are, to be honest with you. Frank doesn't want to lose games. He doesn't want to drop points. At the end of the day, this is a massive step up for him. Of course, he's going to want it to do well. He's going to want to prove he can manage at this level. So the frustration will be there with the same players we're all frustrated with. However, I think there's a massive misconception. Anytime anyone ask questions around what we can do or maybe what he can do better and stuff like that, which I think are all fair things to talk about. We're all fans at the end of the day. We all talk about different aspects of the club. Automatically, people are going, oh, stop talking about Frank. You want Frank out there, and putting words in people's mouth when that's not what they're actually saying. And to be honest with you, many people blamed Dan's fans for being like that last year. Well, I see some people behaving the exact same way this year. You know better when you start behaving like that. At the end of the day, people need to realize this is a fan channel. We're going to dissect what's going on at the club, and we're going to speak about it, And no one's sitting here saying Frank out, but it's okay to ask questions of maybe why he's not changing it up as much as he did at Brentford and stuff like that. But big up, Howie. Good to see you. Spurs GCTV, afternoon, lads. Good to see you as well. Noel says 10 plus years of negligence to the squad, I think, is absolutely fair point. I think, at the end of the day, there has to be a realization. Post-Levy era, you are going to need give a manager a couple of transfer windows to really get that squad to a way that we need it. But of course, he's also got to justify that time, as well, of course. Adrian Parker, Simic just hasn't had enough time yet. Sometimes overplays it and doesn't take the shot, just waiting for his confidence to grow. I think that's an absolute fair point. We've also got Danny Darko Spurs when we have Big Dom and Kulu back and need to bring back some of our kids. Scarlett needs time on the pitch. Well, that's one thing that frustrates me. Why isn't Frank giving Scarlett an opportunity, even at least exhaust all of your resources, especially if Richarlison and Tell ain't doing it. And look, you can make the argument, Scarlett's not ready, but the sub appearances that Postecoglou gave him last year, he assisted, he scored goals. So, I think there's argument to maybe say that he justifies being given a run out. Brandon G says, I'd like to see a 3-5-2 formation, Porro and Spence on the wings, Xavi and Paulinho and Koulias in the middle, and Tell and Richie up top. And then we also have Dermotron, member for 44 months. Big up, Dave and Jack. Thank you for all you do. And I'm ready to come back in. Well, let's bring them back in. Big up, Derma.
I have been there for that. I've messaged you in the private chat on WhatsApp. And I thought the other way I'm going to get your attention, because I've been waving like a madman for the past 5 minutes, is actually putting my milestone. I thought that was the other way to get your attention.
Oh, no. Look, you know me, lad. I'm just enjoying my conversation around Tottenham. Shawnee, no problem at all. Yeah. Give me 1 minute and I'll send you on the link, buddy. Hopefully you're keeping well, Shawnee. No, but Derma, you're absolutely, look, you know me. When I get going, lad. I don't look at much else.
I just want to apologise. I've had issues with my Tesco shopping, so I've been on to the Club Card to get it redelivered for today. So I do apologise, Dave. It's very rude of me.
No. She's not at all, lad. Not at all. Hopefully there's a nice steak in the fridge waiting for you for when you're finished. We have Charlie in the house. My area has a power cut, and I'm praying it's fixed by 4:30. I think we're all praying for you, my man. You're no problem whatsoever. You never need to explain to me. Look, even if you don't think it's worth the membership anymore, that's fine. You never need to explain it to me, my man. But very, very kind of you anyway. Big yourself up. Good to see you. And then we also have Steve D. Hopefully you're keeping well. All right, Dave, me old creative players moving country and league sometimes needs time to settle. Yeah. Huddle said he was garbage for the first month at Monaco, and look how that turned out. Yeah, I'm not writing Xavi Simons at all. I was one of the only ones that sat there amongst a huge fanfare. I was one of the only ones that sat there and said this guy's going to take time to adjust physically, mentally and stuff like that. Premier League is the best league in the world. You can play at the top in Spain, Germany, France. But coming to the Premier League, it's a different requirement. You've got to be on it every single game. In them other leagues, you don't have to be on it as much. You can even have a mediocre day and still get away with it. In the Premier League, you will be found out. So it takes time. So I'm nowhere near writing them off on that one. And look, but I wasn't one of the ones that said this guy was going to walk in and be the answer either. But look, we'll crack on with the next talking point, and I'll go and send Butler the link and we'll get him on. Guys, I think this is another fair talking point. At Brentford, Thomas Frank enjoyed a full week of preparation for domestic matches. Now at Tottenham with European fixtures, he hasn't been afforded that time to execute his game plan. And I think it's a fair question. Is he struggling to juggle everything? Is his inexperience at this level shown? Do you think his tactical ideas maybe are getting a bit lost because of the limited amount of training time?
I think so. I look, it's a big step up for him to go from Brentford to Tottenham, but as a manager, you have to get around that very quickly. This is a step up for him. It's a step up for his staff as well. But I think Thomas Frank will get around to it very quickly. I think he'll learn how to adjust, and that's what it is. It's about adjusting. It's about adjusting to your new environment. It's about adjusting to the way with the more games every week. Of course, coaches love to get players on a training pitch and coach them and train them and that, but he's got to learn very quickly. He's got two games a week. So he's got to do everything, I suppose, in a tighter time frame than he would have done at Brentford. But I think he will get there. I think it's a learning curve for him, and I think he will get there in the end, Dave. I've no doubt about that. But every manager has to have an upgrade now and again. Every manager has to step up in their either how they manage or into a new environment. And it's about how they respond to that, how they respond to that pressure, how do they respond to having 2 games a week. And some managers can cope with it, other managers can't. Just have to see what happens to Thomas Frank. Is he going to be the latter, that he can't cope with it, or is he going to come up and rise and prove, look, I am a good manager, I can deal with 2 games a week, I just need to get used to it. And I think he will, Dave. So I don't think there's much issue there, to be fair.
Fair. Stevie, what's your thoughts on it all, because I would argue when it comes to, I think one big thing is that people have missed last year, and it is something that I tried to highlight, that Thomas Frank isn't going to have the 7 days a week on the training pitch like he had at Brentford to sort of get his game plan across and make sure everyone can execute. And I think he had a benefit at Brentford that is, with some bang average players, with 7 days, even they can sort of grasp it. Whereas I think at Tottenham Hotspur, that's where the quality of the player really does matter, because you don't have that time on the training pitch that he had at Brentford. Do you think that maybe there is an element that he's struggling to get his game plan across? Because earlier on in the season, before Europe kicked in, we were winning games and we were able to, put points on the board. Since Europe's kicked in, the results have slided off a little.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, because Thomas Frank actually did have a summer with this squad where he had a full month and a half to really get his his tactical his tactical knowledge across to his players. They understand what the expectations are. They understand the verbiage from a day-to-day standpoint, right? And so, you already have that time, including the first month where we didn't have multiple fixtures. And so from that standpoint, you would probably assume by now players understand exactly what their roles are and what's exactly required of them to execute. That being said, as soon as these games came fast and thick, we started to realize exactly which players are up to the task and who actually is responsible enough to actually handle this type of football at an entire higher level, right? So from that standpoint, I always thought that it's different, right? Like, for example, when Ange Postecoglou came into Nottingham Forest, it was almost a no-win situation because he didn't have a preseason. He didn't have a transfer window in order to get his message across, where Thomas Frank actually did have that. And so from that standpoint, I don't think this is an issue because, he only has 2 days prior to, 2 days until the next fixture, that type of thing, right? Because a lot of these guys went through it last season as well, too. So they understand exactly what what a European season means on top of the cup fixtures and the Premier League as well too, right? So from that standpoint, I don't necessarily believe that this is a Thomas Frank issue because he can't handle the rigors of having multiple games played for a week. It's just, I don't know, man. If this was a Postecoglou issue with Nottingham Forest, fair enough, I can buy into that. But he had a summer and he had a training camp. He had enough time to get this message across.
Yeah, no, look, I think that's a fair point. I think one thing that Frank is also battling, though, even though we had a European campaign last year, they were allowed to take their ease off the gas coming into the Premier League games. And, psychologically, when you're allowed to do that for a long time, it becomes a pattern, right? And at some point, it's hard to come out of that pattern. And I think Frank, that's another big thing that Frank also has to try and overcome. And I think, again, that's going to be given time, to get these players out of the mindset that it's Premier League, I could take.
But that comes,
I said myself.
But that comes with expectations, right? That comes with a winning expectation, right? And so if that's the issue, then it's convincing players that were accustomed to losing and being okay with losing. Now the expectation level becomes something where, again, if there's any message from a week-to-week standpoint, it's losing's not acceptable.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair. Good evening, Shawnee, or good afternoon, shall I say? How are you, my man?
I'm good, boys. How's everyone doing? You're good to see you, Dave. Good to see you, Steve. Dermatron. How's everyone doing?
This is the first time that you and I have met.
Is it?
Yeah. Big fan.
That seems odd if that's true. That should have happened a lot sooner than this. It's nice to meet you if that's the case. By the way, mate, are you sure your microphone is connected? Because it sounds you're talking. It sounds like you're speaking so close to your mic that I would feel like maybe you've got your computer audio as the selected audio.
Nope, it's this bad boy right here. So yeah,
tap on tap on it for me. Nah, it's not. It's not that mic. It's not working.
Okay.
Sean's also coming in here and giving that's the only reason my Sean popped in today. He's giving you some
it's
advice.
Sean Tech's advice services. He pops in.
Going, this man speaking so close to the mic. Like I feel like I'll be able to hear it better, but I can hear a lot of room around him. That's all. It sounds a little bit echoey.
Oh, you know what it is? Because I'm actually in a room that actually has echo. So
fair enough. No problem.
You almost had me tripping there for a minute. I was like, oh crap.
You're lucky you didn't have a rage out and you start pulling out wires and everything left, right, and center. That would have been a big problem. Sean would have just come in and caused chaos, derailed everything. But Shawnee, how are you, my man? Good to see you. It's actually really good to see you and have you back on here, my man. I mean, look, you've been listening to us, I presume, speak about Thomas the Frank engine. Where are you at with how we've got on at the start of the season? I think, what we've been saying has been quite fair, to be fair, that, you need to give this guy a bit more time and, another transfer window or two at least. Where are you at with it all?
I find it really odd, mate. I find it so wild that everybody is. I feel like there's a lot of agendas at play. I think there's a hell of a lot of agendas across Twitter, like in the WhatsApp groups that I'm in. The people that either didn't want Ange to go, or were never sold on Frank in the first place, are leaning into the reasons to be pessimistic. The people that were the people that backed Frank or that really wanted Ange gone and then were behind Frank, I feel like in their eyes, they're not allowing any negativity. They're calling out everybody that is that they're sort of leaning into any of the kind of the expose. Like, what are we doing here? He hasn't got these players. He's got no one to work with. Like, it's on the players. The players aren't good enough. The club didn't do enough in the window, and everybody's like basically talking their book a little bit, right? Everybody's like leaning into certain things, and I'm just like, what? Like, is it great? No. Is it perfect? Far from it. Are the performances exceptional? 100% no. But we could have been second if we'd beaten Aston Villa. We're undefeated in the Champions League. We're undefeated away from home. Like, it's not anywhere near as bad as those people that are doom scrolling are suggesting it is. It's also not as good as those people that won't hear anything bad about Thomas Frank, right? And so, like, the truth is always somewhere in the middle, but no one ever likes to participate in the middle because being in the middle is boring, right? And so you have echoes of extremes just in charge of the narrative. And to me, I find the whole thing a little bit silly. Like, do I think that Thomas Frank needs to do more with what he has? Yes. Do I think that his overarching ambition right now is to not lose games rather than to win? Do I think he throws enough? Like, yes, I do. And do I think that he throws enough caution to the wind? No, I don't. I think he needs to, take a bit more risk on. He seems quite risk averse.
Yep.
Do I think that he is, maybe it's to his own detriment in terms of the zeitgeist that he isn't calling out the amount of injuries that he has? We have 4 centre-backs that are out injured right now. We have, very little in the way of attacking options that are fully fit. We needed to do more in the summer. Is he sort of dwelling on that? No, he isn't. Sometimes, like, being the kind of, I just get on with it, get on with what I'm working with. Sometimes those things go unnoticed and no good deed goes unpunished. Like, maybe he'd get a little bit more sympathy if he was screaming from the rooftops about how many, we've got 10 or 11 injuries at the moment. When I saw last night people saying, "Oh, look, you can't judge Liverpool that much." Liverpool have got 3 major players out. 3. We've got 5 first-team players out of our team at the moment. So, like, because there's not a song and dance about it from the manager, then therefore people don't talk about it enough. And I think
the thing is, though, I disagree, because when Post-Kane made a song and a dance about it last year, everyone called it excuses. He's got to find a way. It doesn't matter, etc.
I agree. This is what I mean. That you are like, if you bring it, you're always going to. You can't win either way. There's going to be an element of the fan base that is always going to pick you apart, whatever happens. I'm just someone that sits firmly in the middle, and I'm saying, like, are we doing that badly? No. Are we improving relative to how we started? No. Do I want to see better? Do I want to see a bit more risk and a little bit more of positive outcomes, and take a little bit more of a kind of, I don't know, just a better approach to the football? 100%. But am I in any way leaning into the narrative that some people are suggesting that everything's all good? 100% I'm not. But I'm also not going to lean into the narrative that, like, he should be sacked or the Frank out thing, all that stuff. It's just wild. Like, everyone just sit there and realise we're 3 months into hopefully a 2-year project. He needs more players. He'll get them. He needs time. He'll get them. Everybody just needs to kind of, like, relax a little bit.
Yeah.
No, look, I'm sort of with you on that. That's where I've sort of been with it. Like, if I do see things that I'm not happy with, or things that I think I need to, I want to talk about and critique, I will. But also, I'm not sitting here screaming from the rooftops going, Frank out, this, that, and the other. I think, you're speaking about agendas. I fully agree with you. This is something I said, a few weeks ago. Me and Jack were discussing that. It seems like, you got the Frank, the Jans fans still hang around that want sort of Frank to fail, and then, to be proven right and stuff like that. And then, you've also got it on the flip side. In reality, a lot of the Frank fans are doing what they accused Ange Postecoglou fans of doing last season, and they just don't see their own hypocrisy and stuff like that. The reality is where I'm at, and I think, the only agenda that people should listen to was mine. Post Harry Kane, post Son. I tried to warn about it for years, and this is the stark reality of it. Everyone's screaming out for striker, everyone's screaming out for a left winger. And ultimately, unless you give Frank the tools, this is going to keep happening. We can bring in another manager, the same style of football. You're going to see it. He may have a different, way of setting up the midfield, the defense, and stuff like that. But the reality is, going forward, you're still going to see the same shit, because it does come down to the lack of quality in that regard. Good morning, Jacko. How are you,
Sorry
sir?
for being late to class, Dave. Absolutely slept through the alarm. For some reason, I thought it started now, not an hour ago. Holy shit.
I didn't even know the clocks went back. It's my fault. I didn't communicate it with anybody. I had my timings were all over the place. I didn't even know.
I wish I could use that as an excuse. I think I knew that the clocks were changing. I just, for some reason, had a brain fart and thought that it started starting right now instead of an hour ago. So I'm late to class. send me to the principal afterwards.
No. You're all good. You're all good. Look, it happens. I mean, I'm not one for giving out about being late. I'm late to absolutely everything, to be fair. So, I mean, I'm not one to be giving out about that. But look, I do want to sort of kick it on a bit, and let's talk about, the tough month that we've got coming up ahead. It's undeniably a tough month ahead with fixtures including Everton away today. We haven't won up there in over 4 years. Newcastle away. Look at the hidings we've took up there the last couple of years. Chelsea at home, always a difficult game. Copenhagen at home, you would hope we'd win. Man United at home, beating Liverpool, won their game yesterday as well, picking up a bit of form. Then Arsenal away and PSG away. It's going to be an absolute tough month, a dark month. Every game's going to be a dogfight, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the fans sort of react through this month. Are they going to give the guy patience that everyone was screaming about when we hired him in the first place? Or are they going to turn because results aren't going our way? It'd be very interesting. For me, I do describe this as a run that Frank will either gain fans along the way and pull people with him, or he'll end up losing a lot of fans along this run. That's just my opinion on it. But with confidence already low, does this period represent a litmus test for Frank in that regard? Like I said, is it where fans buy in or turn against them? And, we'll start with you on this one, Jack. I'll get you involved.
I think you're right. The fixture schedule gets darker. The day itself, in terms of the light that we have every day, is only going to get darker, hence daylight savings. So it's definitely a dark period that's coming. I think just on sort of whether he'll gain fans, lose fans, we mentioned this the other day. The fact that the style of play at the minute, even though I do think there's chance it could improve, but the fact that we are playing a bit of a defensive, pragmatic type of style, we are reliant on set pieces and whatnot. I personally don't care. I don't mind playing that way, but most Spurs fans do mind, and they do want to see a more attack-minded, a more creative, exciting type of football. I think then, like we mentioned the other day, if you are playing a bit more of a pragmatic style, there's less of a leash that you have. And when results do start dropping, I think fans show less patience than they would if you were playing a very attack-minded, beautiful brand of football. I think that's why Ange actually stayed in the job so long, really, was because we knew that there was good football in there. We've seen it, and we know it can work. With Frank, we know that he can pick up results, but maybe the football isn't that great. But then when the results start dropping, the fans do have less patience and are willing to sort of lash out maybe a bit quicker. So I think, Dave, it's a real opportunity for him to, I think, win over a ton of people or potentially get more people against him. And that's just the way the football works. And I said the other night, I think the fact that, pragmatic managers seem to get turned on more quicker than maybe a more exciting brand of football type of manager, I think is also just the nature of sports and just the nature of how the game works itself. So the fact that Thomas Frank has decided to fix the defense and fix set pieces and all that type of thing, I think was very smart, but I think he's got to pick up results soon. And then hopefully as well, the creative side of the game can come eventually too. But yeah, he's got to pick up results.
Look, you could argue, the way we're playing, we're probably set up for these tough games away. They're not going to show us respect. They're going to come out at us. And, maybe we could shithouse, winning some of these games from set pieces and stuff like that. Look, I think, Post-Kane had a similar period in his first season towards the end of the campaign. He had Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, and someone else, all back to back. And we lost every single game we've been playing off the park. And it was there where really a lot of the claps around Post-Kane happened. And I think we've got a similar sort of run coming up now. However, I would argue, I think if Thomas Frank could take some points away from this run, I think he will get a lot of buy-in. I think he will earn a lot of patience from the Spurs fan base. So I think, this could if I'm Thomas Frank, I'm probably looking forward to this run, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, these are the games you want to be involved in. And these are a lot of the teams that many Spurs fans looked at last year that Brentford were taking points off and said, we want a bit of that. So he's shown the ability to be able to do it. So I think if he can pick up points along this run, I think he'll get an ultimate buy-in from a lot of Spurs fans. I mean, Stevie, over to you, my man. I mean, what would success actually look like across this run? Is it about points, performances, or just progress?
It almost has to be points, right? The more points that you drop, the further away from the ultimate goal that this team is going to, the further you get away, the more we're not going to be able to achieve the goals, right? So from that standpoint, it almost has to be points. Today in specific, I mean, when you look at the upcoming schedule, it almost feels like we're coming into the into a murderer's row type of portion of the schedule where points actually points mean absolutely everything. Now, granted, that being said, what is the ultimate goal? I guess that's the question we have to ask. But that being said, at the end of the day, you want to put yourself in a position, because if things happen to go wrong in November, December, come January, when you come to the transfer window, is it at that point, are we so far behind that we're on the outside looking in, right? And how much is that transfer window going to rescue the season, right? So as far as I'm concerned, like, points are the only things that matter at this point. And when you consider the points that we dropped so far, we had no business dropping those points. We're talking about Bournemouth, Brighton, Wolves, right? I mean, there was a coming into the season, there was a good opportunity when you're looking at the first 2 months of the season, thinking 20 points isn't exactly out of the possibility if we played this right. But unfortunately, we dropped points, and now all of a sudden you start seeing other teams now climbing up into the top 10 or into the top 5, and we're kind of sinking a little bit. Dropping points today would be an absolute catastrophe as far as I'm concerned, because the next step is Newcastle in the cup, and then it's Chelsea, then we have Man United, Arsenal, and it's all of a sudden now these 3 points are starting to look better and better.
No, I absolutely agree. I do think Everton away today is a must win. I think with the bigger fixtures to follow, I think this is a must win for Thomas Frank and for Spurs, because I made the case with the Aston Villa one. It's about momentum heading into these games.
Correct.
If you head into the games off the back of a win, all of a sudden you feel like you can compete. If you end up dropping points to a team like Everton today, you're sort of looking at them fixtures ahead the way them teams usually do and go, I'm not looking forward to that. We're probably going to lose here today. And I don't want that feeling around the club. So for me, I think it's very, very important that Thomas Frank does try and get the 3 points today in that regard. Now, look, obviously it's not going to be easy. Like I said, we haven't beaten Everton away in over 4 seasons. They've only conceded 2 goals at their new home. They haven't lost there yet. But like I said earlier on, our away form is the best in the league. 71% of our points have come from away games. We haven't lost away from home, so there's optimism here today. But for me, I think today is absolutely a huge game in that regard for Thomas Frank, for sure. I mean, Dermo, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Good man. Sorry. If results don't go our way, do you sense the fan base will remain patient over this? After this upcoming month, or could we see the frustrations boil over quite quickly, like we have maybe from the fan base under previous managers? And look, people can sit there and say, "Oh, it's all just noise online and across YouTube and all that sort of stuff," but all of that is, the Spurs fan base. People can sit there and say, "Oh, it's not real, this, that, and the other." It's Spurs fans that are out there putting this up there, so it is coming from the Spurs fan base. So where are you on it, Dermo?
Look, I'm not going to one that's going to get frustrated. Look, I think he needs time. He's a new manager. You can't expect him to work miracles with us only after one transfer window. Does he need to adapt more? Yes. Does he need to change it a bit more during games? Yes, we all expected him to do that, but he hasn't yet. Look, I understand fans are going to be frustrated. It's human nature. Football fans are a fickle bunch. If we don't get success straight away, we're going to be frustrated. We're going to be demanding of what we want from our club. Doesn't matter if you go to every game home of the week or you're doing it full time on YouTube. We're all Tottenham fans. We all have an opinion. We all voice that opinion. But I did feel even last season that I watched a lot of Sean's videos from the stadium, and interviewing fans. And I think the majority of the fans were sort of, yeah, Ange's frustrating, but we're going to get behind him. We're going to see what happens. And I think if you drive a narrative or drive an opinion, either it's for Frank or against Frank, is going to gain traction with some part of the fan base, because some part of the fan base never wanted Frank in the first place. Some part of the fan base were behind Frank 100%. There has to be a middle ground. But if he doesn't get good results over the next month, I think some of them fans will be calling for his head, and that's wrong in my opinion. I think he needs time. He needs another transfer window next summer to get where he needs to get to. But if performances don't improve, if the playing style doesn't improve, then I think there will be a lot of questions asked. But this wanting him out, this saying it's way too early. We give Ange more time than we did. I think just one thing, Dave. We as a fan base, we're very fickle because we haven't had success and we want success so badly. So I think that's behind it all. Sorry.
Yeah. No, no, no. I hear you. I hear you on that one. But look, I think, people that are frank out already are basically saying that what we have is good enough to be doing better than what we are. That we have a good enough front line, and Frank should be doing more, which I think maybe is a bit of a wrong analysis on their part. On that regard. But Shawnee, I mean, with the bigger games coming up then, my man, does this feel like today is a must win then, in terms of momentum, in terms of belief heading into this tough run?
I mean, based on what? But based on the reactions of fans. I mean, I just think that the fans need to just relax a little bit. As I said in my first answer, I think that we do this every single time. It's cyclical. It happens. It's like rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
You bring someone new in. Some of the fan base didn't want the last guy to go. Others who were happy for him to go didn't want the new guy specifically. And even those that did want him, everyone likes a shiny new toy. It's the same with players. Everyone's desperate to get someone that comes in. As soon as you get him, he's not quite as good or not quite as immediately as amazing and perfect as everyone said he was going to be, or they thought he was going to be, then he's not good enough. Everyone's just knee-jerk reactions all the time. Is today's performance, result important? 100%. But based on what? Like, we are where we thought we would finish anyway. Most reasonable fans thought we were finishing sixth. Because we were suddenly 2 points behind Arsenal and Liverpool a couple of weeks ago, suddenly a loss is unacceptable, because we've now caught ourselves up in this weird, ridiculous idea that we're in a title
loss
race.
Is unacceptable, Sean. It's like, a lot of people praise the result against Wolves and Bodo. Look how resilient we were and stuff like that. I was sort of the opinion, I don't look at it as resilient. I look at it as points we need to get, because when the fixtures came out, the opportunity was there to get off to a good start. We've got a tough run coming up. Notoriously games that Tottenham have shown under loads of different managers, we do not win. And all of a sudden, after this month, we won't be in sixth. We'll be back down in the bottom half of the table. That loss to Aston Villa brought them closer, even though we were 4 points ahead of them heading into that game. I think we're 4 points ahead of Everton heading into today's game, or 3 points. If we don't get a win here today, all of a sudden, if they beat us, they're pulled in closer. Then you've got a real dark month coming ahead, and all of a sudden,
Correct.
a lot of the goodwill factor is going to be lost across this month as we go on. People won't be sitting there going, but we're still only 2 points off where we are. We're going to be way further down the table.
No, but the season is so nascent, right? Like, there's no point at looking at the table until November. It's like, a 3-point victory or a nil points from the Aston Villa game. We could have been second if we beat Villa. Right now, we're talking about being bottom half of the table. Like, this is why it's just madness to be looking at the table until you get to about the 18 game mark, in my opinion, because there's 3 points separates about 10 teams. So, like, to me, I think it's unnecessary. Look, do I think a performance? I almost think that a performance is more important than a victory today, just to prove to some people that we've got it in us. Because right now we seem like when we do get a result, like against Monaco, we were absolutely appalling in the second half, shocking. But some people are going, well, it's a point. We're undefeated in the Champions League. Yeah, but we were lucky as hell, and you can make the argument we're lucky against Bodo as well, right? What I would say, I know this sounds crazy, but I genuinely think that if we're in a very weird situation where last season we were playing in the Europa League, a very poor competition in comparison to the standards of the Champions League. It's very unusual for a team to be playing in the top tier of European football for the first time in 3 years, following a season where we weren't in it and we didn't qualify for it via the Premier League, and then to have a new manager. So a new manager comes in, generally speaking, on the back of a horrendous situation, and a new manager then has a clean sweep. But this manager's coming in inheriting a harder set of outcomes, a harder set of challenges, a harder set of competitions to have to bake in. And on top of that, he's got to try to, in his mind, probably unravel some of the tendencies to be gung-ho and make us more solid at the back, when he only gets 2 days on the training ground a week, where he has to practice and prepare for 2 different games. And it's not like playing in the Conference League where you can almost don't worry about, we're playing some, Wi-Fi password from Bulgaria or whatever. We haven't got to worry about that. Let's just focus on Everton this week and Man City next weekend. No, we've got to focus on, Monaco on Tuesday or Wednesday. Then we've got Everton. Then we've got whoever we've got next, PSG or Copenhagen. Then we've got Arsenal, whatever, all these things. And so you get 2 days traveling, 2 days playing,
But
2
why
days
weren't fans
recovery.
saying that last year then? When everyone wanted Thomas Frank, they were saying, look at it. No, he's going to develop. He's going to work. I was one of the only ones that sat there and said that, brought it up, that this guy is not going to have the time on the training pitch like many fans said he was going to. Fans are only pivoting to that now. They weren't saying that when they wanted this guy in the door.
Well, so I don't care about the other fans' opinions, like Dave. Like I feel like a lot of the time there's a narrative around, like, I'm not saying you're doing this or anyone else as an individual, but just generally speaking, I think there's a lot of people that spend so much time talking about other fans' opinions, and I think I just like, why are we doing that? Let's just focus on what's in the best interest of the football club. How much, in your opinion, how much levity, leverage, gravity, consideration, context, and balance should we be affording a manager who has to work within the constraints of what he has to work within? And that is 2 games a week, which means 2 days traveling, 2 days rest, 2 days on the training ground. And that's difficult. If you're trying to inculcate new models of football, if you're trying to figure out, well, why is it that we're still doing a 4-2-3-1 when we don't really have a left winger and we don't really have a striker, and we could be doing something different, but we could go to a back 3, but unfortunately, because of the 11 injuries we've got at the moment, that makes that difficult. Like, the conversation should be around that, not worrying around like point scoring around who said what and when they said it and who had the agendas and all that. Like, to me, I just think all of those things are irrelevant, because there's always going to be an element of the fan base that will say, I told you so. And there's always going to be an element of the fan base that move the goalposts every chance they get, because there's nobody that's keeping tabs on their particular opinions. Like, who cares about whether, Johnny Hockey Sticks in...
I get what you're saying, and I get what you're saying about Thomas Frank, having only 2 days to prepare. But at the end of the day, that was one of my big concerns with this guy coming in here. He's never had a task like this in his life, in terms of having to challenge, manage Europe and a domestic campaign. And I think, it's still one concern that I sort of hold. I don't think he knows how to sort of manage it, to be honest with you. I think there's an element of him sort of learning on the job as he goes along. But what I will say when it comes to Thomas Frank, look, at the end of the day, us fans, everyone can share their opinion, but it comes down to what the board want to do with him after the end of this month, where we are, how it looks and stuff like that. Because the reality is, people can sit here and say it's too early to judge. We're 6 points off the top, we're 6 points off the bottom. This run coming up can very easily decide what sort of campaign we're going to have. We're either going to be a top half of the table team, or we're going to, struggle bottom half of the Premier League and stuff like that. That's what this run coming up is going to define. Now, of course, I hope Thomas Frank can navigate it and we can be in the top half of the league. But if we don't, all of a sudden you're looking at maybe no Europe next season and stuff like that, and how our fans going to be forgiven. No, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to what the board want to do. Arsenal were in a similar situation with Mikel Arteta. They chose to back him despite every pundit, every fan saying this guy needs to go, this guy needs to go. They backed him. And so it really comes down to what the board want to do. But the big question we have around this appointment is did Lewis family have a say in Frank? Is Frank their guy? Or is he Daniel Levy's guy? So which will sort of dictate how much patience is going to be shown to Frank from the board, which I think is very, very interesting. So we're approaching that sort of month where it's going to, I think we'll know more, whether he is a Lewis appointment or they have a say in it, or whether he was a Daniel Levy appointment. He's
going to get a year, right? He's in 3 months in the job. And we say
that, but Nuno was sacked at the end of October. I don't want to hear this. It's nonsense. Managers get sacked when results don't do well.
It's the vicious circle that the club unfortunately listened to, right? Because here's the thing: if we drop points today and that trend continues, and then we go out to Newcastle in the League Cup, and then by the time that we get to December and we still have only one or two wins in our last 8, unfortunately the club is going to pay attention to it. I actually agree with you, Shani. I actually wholeheartedly agree with you. But unfortunately, right, when we start talking about these things, these results actually kind of matter. And by the time that we get to that point in December, and we're at the same point this year as we were last year, where the fans are literally outside the stadium with pitchforks. Unfortunately, the club is going to listen to that.
Yeah, but why? What? But like, I don't understand why we're assuming we're gonna, like, if we beat Aston Villa, and that Aston Villa game was like, it could have gone either way.
But it didn't.
Because we lost the game, people are reflecting.
But it didn't.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. But we would have been second in the league. And this is the point. At this stage in the season, you're 6 points from the top and you're 6 points from the bottom. That's because only 8 games have been played. there's only been 24 points that you could have had at this
Yeah,
stage.
but you're not looking at what's coming up ahead, Sean. We had an
No,
easy start.
I hear you on that, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, but they're traditionally games. I'm going off evidence and past evidence. They're traditionally games we don't win. Go and look at the stats behind them. Look at the time, how long we haven't won in some of these games.
But like we have to play them at some. I don't like. Are we just so we're having speculative conversations on Thomas Frank leaving the football club based on an assumption that we're going to lose.
You're putting words in people's mouth. No one's having a speculative conversation about Thomas Frank leaving the football club. No one said that. We're having a conversation around whether the fans are going to give him patience coming out at the end of this run. Don't start twisting words.
Oh, Steve just stay on. Steve just talked about the fact that there'll be pitchforks outside the football club, and you said the owners are going to have to have a conversation.
Well, you were saying that it's a circular issue that we probably shouldn't be paying attention. But the reality is, unfortunately, I do pay attention to it because we've been in this position before, and it literally happened a year ago where the results were one loss turned into two, and then all of a sudden we're on an 8-game stretch where we only have one win in 8. And because of those results, we went from a very good position, whether that was 4th or 6th, and now all of a sudden we're in 13th, 14th, and the season is over. By the time we get to Christmas,
the season won't be over. So we're having a conversation now based on the assumption that we lose the next 6 Premier League games. Is that what we're doing?
Of course not.
No.
We're having a conversation based on the tough period that's coming up. We've had a conversation, does it make today put pressure on to deliver 3 points today, which I think it does. We've had a conversation around, what success looks like from this run. And at the end of the day, I think, when you look at some of these fixtures that we've got coming up, traditionally they're fixtures we haven't done well in. And it's sort of like, it's one of them that it's either going to bring, Thomas Frank is going to bring people with him on this run, or people are going to get off. People are already getting off the Thomas Frank train with losses and stuff like that. That's what you're already seeing. And that's what this conversation is about. You're just trying to twist it and put words in people's mouth now, Sean.
I'm not twisting anything.
Even if the performances are good,
I'm not trying to
but we still lose. Like, even if the performances are good, but we still lose, unfortunately, the club is going to pay attention to that. That's all I'm saying.
Can I just say,
sorry, Sean. I don't know why you're bringing this energy at me, mate. I'm trying to understand what the purpose of the conversation is. I feel like the fan base that are already Thomas Frank out, they were never Thomas Frank in. They were never anyone that was Thomas Frank in for sure can't have lost faith after 8 games when we're undefeated away from home and we're undefeated in the Champions League. Is it performances that matter or is it the results that matter? I don't understand the difference anymore because no one seems to be consistent. To me, it always feels like there's a bunch of point scoring that's going on in the fan base. And again, not aimed at anybody specifically or any channel specifically, because it happens on Twitter, it happens on Instagram. I see it everywhere. I see it at the stadium. I saw it at the stadium at the Aston Villa game. Everyone is, I told this or I said that before, or I wanted this and now I'm getting that. It just seems to be, I don't know, in a sort of narky mood where if it's not perfect, then it becomes a case of, well, what else? I'm not saying this about you guys.
No, I know, but I'm thinking what you're saying is people are getting off board with the performances, and I get what you're saying. Do results matter? Yes, of course results matter, but with Tottenham, there is this thing around the entire fan base that we have to play a certain brand of football. We have to play a certain way. We have to be entertainers. And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of people sort of getting frustrated with what we've seen. And to Jack's point, people got very frustrated at Jose, Conte, Nuno very, very quickly playing a similar brand of football when the performances weren't there. And I think that's the whole point. That's where you're seeing fans get frustrated. Look, I've already said, I think this needs time. I think this needs more transfer windows to really help Thomas Frank. I don't, when I look at it, I think the build-up play from the back is okay. I think in midfield, generally, it's okay. I think the big problem is in the forward line. And unfortunately, I'm not sure there's much Thomas Frank could do with that. I do think it comes down to continued investment. But, you're already starting to see fans get pissed off because of the style of play. Even when we're drawing games, even when we're picking up points, fans are sitting there moaning, saying it's boring, this, that, and the other. And, ultimately, that's where the frustration is coming from.
I think with all of this, right, with the fans and Thomas Frank and Thomas Frank out, the football we're playing, we're under a new manager. He's only had sort of 8 competitive games plus pre-season. He's not going to work miracles overnight. He's had 1 transfer window where, to be fair, I don't think he's got the majority of the players in. Sorry about next door. And also, I do feel that he needs to be given time. this narrative of Frank out because we're going to lose the next couple of games, or we're losing to Man United, or we're losing to Arsenal, or we're losing to Chelsea. It's going to happen. If we win, the fan base is going to be all like up in arms and happy and thinking we've got the great manager in the world. If we lose, everyone will say we want Frank out. Give the man
100%.
a chance.
100%, Dermo.
He's only been here.
If we win today,
Sorry, Sean.
everyone's fine. If we lose today, you're right.
Yeah.
And Dave is right. Fan base are going to go into meltdown mode. 100%. But that happens every single week. Like, today's no different. Does Thomas Frank... I genuinely think that Thomas Frank, if we draw today, but Thomas Frank puts on a show, or his team like throws a bit more caution to the wind and goes at Everton a bit more, I think the reasonable reaction will be more along the lines of, okay, Everton's a really difficult place to play. I think they're undefeated at home this season so far, and they're under their new stadium. So, like, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we were looking to see a little bit more positivity, and we saw it. We were unlucky. We hit the post or whatever else, or we can digest the game afterwards. If we win, but we win shockingly badly, I think that there'll be more of the same kind of sentiment as there currently exists. That
I won't. I'd be happy. I just like winning games
Yeah.
of football. I don't care.
I'm talking about the broad.
Can I ask you
I
all
know,
a question?
Twitter
Can
is
I
just
ask you all a question?
not-
Just
not sorry. Go on.
sorry, Sean. Can I ask you all a question? Yes or no question. If somebody offered you a point today before the game, if somebody said, right, you come away at least with a point, would you be happy with that? With a bad performance?
I can't stand a draw, Dermo. I
know you can't.
I
I know you
hate
can't.
draws, mate. I think the draws
Yeah,
are.
I know you do.
Biggest waste of space. I'd rather every game finish with a loss or a win, because I don't care. Because if you get 38 draws in the season, you go, yeah, we're undefeated, but you can still get relegated, right?
Yeah,
if you
I
win,
get that.
Totally.
if you win 13 games but you lose 25, you end up with more points than you do if you draw every game. So to me, there should always be throwing caution to the wind to try to go for the victory, even if it comes at a defeat, because ultimately a point doesn't change much in your overall.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
I think, look, when it comes down to, since we're on it, style of play and stuff like that, performances, I mean, it just comes down to whether you personally think Thomas Frank has the personnel to play more expansively, or is he being limited by what he's got? So, I mean, look, we'll throw that out to the panel there. Everyone have a quick side. I just need to go to the back 1 sec.
I think I think it's almost futile to attempt it because of the lack of quality in the forward line. Like a lot of people in the chat have been saying, almost no one of any of the players we have to pick from in the forward line, from the guys who start the games to the guys that are on the bench, almost no one makes it into the top 6. Very few of them even make it into general Premier League teams. So I think if you were to go for an attack brand style of football, then you're leaning on players that just aren't very good, and also haven't even been at the club very long, or very raw, very young. So I think he's done the right thing by looking at the defense, looking at set pieces, and looking to be, assured that way. And then eventually he can hope that there could be some guy that blows up, has a good purple patch, or somebody ends up sort of figuring out at some point. But I think it's going to be difficult to try to play an expansive brand of football with the players that we have. And to be frank, no pun intended, I think with his Brentford team, they weren't ever really that expansive or really that fun to watch. They just had, again, really good set pieces, really solid defense, really good midfield that was kind of boring but very effective and pragmatic. And then he's always had great forwards that he could just sort of rely on producing magic on their own and taking the chances that came their way. With Mbumo, he had Ollie Watkins in the past, he had Ivan Toney, he had Johan Visa, just recently had Kevin Schade, who's a good player as well. So he's just had, I think, exceptional forward lines to work with. I'm pretty sure
none of them were great when he arrived, though, Jack. Right? Or when they arrived,
totally.
they were all back.
I think
So
it
he
was good
coached them to
recruitment,
become
though.
better players, right?
I think it was good recruitment, to be honest, by Brentford, clearly with the guys that they brought in. But
clearly.
and the guys that he's struggling with right now are the same players that Ange Postecoglou struggled with. We struggled with Matisse Tell. We struggled with Odegaard. Like Johnson, I think, is being found out this season for the most part. And Richarlison, for some reason, is still at the club. So he doesn't, and he has, of course, injuries with Madison and Kulusevski and whatnot, which doesn't make things any easier. So I think he's just inheriting the same problem that Postecoglou had. Postecoglou he leaned on attack-minded football, but he didn't have that great of forwards to really work with. So it's almost like Frank is just inheriting the exact same problem that Ange Postecoglou had when it came to the forward line. I just feel like his Brentford team, I'll finish up by just saying, like, I could be wrong. I didn't look at the stats, but I'd imagine that they finished pretty high above their XG, last season and probably most of their seasons.
Yeah.
And I think that's because they have a really good forward line that would put away the half chances, the quarter chances that came their way. Whereas with us, we have open goals at times that we're missing. We have easy breakaways that are 2-on-3s or 3-on-2s, and we can't even get a shot on target from them. So this is what he has to work with, which is why I'm giving him patience in that regard. The only reason I was frustrated the last game against Monaco was because we were just so wide open defensively, which we haven't really seen that much under Frank. So maybe it was just a bad day at the office, but that's my take on it. I think it's hard for him to try to make this team look really attractive on paper going forward because the players just aren't that good.
Right. And I'm perfectly okay with the setup. Now, don't get me wrong. A part of me wants to know what it would look like if we were playing in a back three. Playing with a little bit more with wing backs. But that being said, I actually prefer a pragmatic approach because at the very least, I know that we're going to be in most games. We're not going to be cut through. We're not going to concede 3 or 4 goals a game. And be out of it by halftime, right? So from that standpoint, I'm perfectly fine with it. I've already come to the realization that whatever's going to happen, there's not going to be much change until the January transfer windows. For that standpoint, like you, Jack, man, I'm just hoping that 1 or 2 guys actually kind of hit some form between now and then. Maybe we can get Solanke back in. Maybe we get Kulusevski back in before the new year. But at that point, what more can Thomas Frank do at this point?
I think if you look at the injuries, Sean's right when he said, was it 11 injuries, Sean, you said we had? I counted 10, but maybe 11.
10 or 11 at the moment. Yeah, it's coming crazy.
I think we've got to take that into our thinking process as well of how Thomas Frank's going. I agree with you, Jack. The second half against Monaco was woeful. It was really poor. And I think everyone had a right to be angry with that sort of performance. For me, there was no fight or desire. And that's the biggest thing for me. If we go away and we put an effort in, even if we lose, I can say, no, fair enough, the players tried. I may not be happy with the result, but at least it sits comfortable with me. If the players are going out there not even trying and we lose, then I have a problem. I come from a time of watching football where we played shit, but in the 90s, them players put in 100% performance every week. And we were playing under crap managers at that time. But Thomas Frank will get it right. He needs time. We need to be patient. And we can't keep overreacting. As a fan base, we can't keep doing this. Doesn't matter if it's from YouTube. Doesn't matter if it's from the stadium. Doesn't matter if it's from people in the chat. We all want Tottenham to win. We all want us to win trophies. We've got a taste of what winning a trophy is like. We want more of it. We've got the taste in our nostrils. We want more trophy. But we've got to give this man time. I wanted Thomas Frank in before Ange Postecoglou. He was my pick before Ange got the job. And I was happy with Thomas Frank, and I was one in the summer, and I hold my hand up, say he's going to be adaptable, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Has he lived up to my expectations? Not really, but I know he will. Give the man a chance. He's only been in the job 5 minutes. And we can't keep sacking managers. It's proven under Levy, it doesn't work. We've got to get behind somebody. Let's get behind Thomas Frank.
And look, I think performances will bring that, but I also think there has to be a recognition. If you don't have match winners in the squad, every game is going to be scrappy. There is going to be lots of ups and downs. And, I've made the point already. I think it's just about trying to get our way to January as best as we can. And then it's over to the Lewis family to see what they can do. But then I think there also has to be a massive realization. The January window is a hard window to operate in. Sometimes it's very hard to get the desired quality you need up front and off, across the front line in general. So again, you might just have to be patient until the summer. But the reality is, from experience, Spurs fans will not be patient playing this way. It's just that simple. We had it under Jose, we had a similar one under Conte, similar one under Nuno. If you're not picking up results, fans will go absolutely ballistic. But like I've argued, I think this is where fans need to be smarter. This is a guy that a lot of fans wanted in from the very beginning. They got their guy. Now it is time to show the guys a bit of patience. But what I will say is the performances do need to improve, because you are seeing a lot of people start to become frustrated with performances, and a lot of them sitting there going, well, what's changed? But The reality is this is post-Kane and Son era. We got to find the right players to come in that forward line to be the match winners. Our 2 match winners are gone that we've relied on. Even when Kane went, we relied on Son an awful lot. They're gone now. This is the start reality of it. Everyone could sit there and go, but Kudos needs to do more. He's been double and triple marked most games.
Right.
Because there's no quality through the middle. There's no quality off the left. It's a huge problem. The only other thing you may be thinking is, could Frank throw something a little bit tactically different at the opposition? Could he do what he done against PSG? You know, maybe he needs to put Papamata Sarr back in there. If we're not going to play through teams, at least have the ability to press them a bit higher up the pitch, win that ball. That means you're only 1 pass in. That's something we were doing at the start of the season. That's something that has dropped off since Papamata Sarr has come out of the team. So I think there also needs to be a realization. And look, I can understand why Frank done it. He experimented, right? Tried to make us easier on the eye by playing Xavi Simons in there. Reality is Xavi Simons just isn't ready in there right now, and that is a problem, which means I think he has to go back to Papamata Sarr in that number 10 until Xavi Simons acclimatizes. I'd play him off the left. When he plays, he hangs out down the left-hand side, which means then I would play him off the left, and the reason why he's doing that is because he finds more space out there. And I think he'd deliver more quality off with crosses than maybe someone like Udebur or someone like that. So for me, that's what I would do. And then when he adapts and he's physically up to the task, then you can maybe look at moving him back in the middle and changing it that way. We've got a couple of chats here, though. We will take it. We'll take them, and then we will kick on. Rhino renewing his membership. Really appreciate it. Says Frank needs a free pass for the season. I'm Frank in, and I will die on this hill. He's my manager. Oh, Jacko, are you happy clapping just like me?
I think I've been neutral clapping. I'm kind of, I don't know, maybe this was mentioned earlier. I am sort of in the boat where I do think there is, I think Sean said it, point scoring between fan bases. There are people that say you can't criticize at all anything with Frank, and then there are people that are waiting for Frank to fail so that they can jump for joy. I've been in the middle where I'm not totally in love with Frank. I wasn't really totally in love with Ange either, though, to be honest. So I do feel like I'm coming from this, maybe for once, pretty neutral perspective about it, because previous managers I really did love and I really was rooting for. Whereas these past two, like, I'm kind of just looking at it from results basis, performance basis. And if performances continue to suck and results continue to drop, I think I will start to ask more questions, Ryan, to be honest. I think in modern football at this sort of age, I think we should want to give Frank a whole season, but that's not really how it always works. Like, Ange Postecoglou got sacked before Halloween, right? Because he couldn't win a single game. It's just the way it goes. Frank, though, is picking up results, to be fair. And I think if he continues to pick up results, you know, he'll improve the football hopefully eventually. So I'm more of a results guy, and I just think he needs to pick up results here and there. It's not like he needs to win every game, but he can't lose 4 or 5 in a row, I think, in my opinion, to be honest.
And that's the key with this upcoming fixture, Jack. You know, we have to at least take some points in between, you know, coming up with these harder games. 100%. Like you said, we can't lose 4 or 5. And we haven't done that yet. So, you know, but, you know, these upcoming fixtures, there is that potential. So, you know, we do have to pick up points during it, which I think will stave off, you know, the people calling for Frank's head. Catman Jets member for 50 months says, big up Dave and Jack. I'm saying Spurs with a 3-1 win. Come on, you Spurs. I'd love that to happen, Catman. But right now, you know, we don't really have the ability to score 3 goals. Now, look, of course, that's the wonderful thing about football. Things can change very, very quickly, you know, in the next 90 minutes. So hopefully that's the case today, Catman Jess. Look, we just really need other players to step up. We're so one-dimensional going forward. And look, that's not down to Thomas Frank. We had the same problem under Postecoglou last year. All we've done is just mirrored the problem, which shows it at some point you got to be smart and go, look, it's down to the quality realistically. And, you know, to back up my point, how many people wanted Ivan Toney in here to replace Kane? How many people wanted Wisa? How many people wanted Mbeumo? You know what I mean? Which shows he did have maybe a better quality front line to work with at Brentford than what we did. And that's why Spurs fans were calling for these guys to come in and sort of, you know, get our front line going to a large degree. Big up, Catman. Good to see you. We also have a couple more chats here. Derek Hutchinson says, Dave, you can't get shit out of a wooden horse. Get rid of crap players. Look, Del Boy, you know me. I've been on that one for quite some time, my man. I've been on that one for quite some time. And Football Heritage TV says, Dermot, take a bow. Bang on. We have played 13 games and lost 2 in 90 minutes. We didn't buy a striker or a left winger. We don't have the players yet for really attractive football. Smash the likes. Dara?
Thank you very much, Sava. I'm very honoured. Never had that from you, so big up to you. Thank you. I think I might. Can I frame that? Can I frame that and put it up on my wall? Sava actually giving me a compliment. I'm going to take that. Big up to you. Yeah, I will take a bow. There you go, sir. There's
You're
your
making
bell.
him. You're making him blush, Xavi. He's like a young lad at
Yeah.
a school disco right now. What have you done to him? He's melting. He's like putty. But
I agree with Saba though. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like to your point, maybe Dave, and you asked this question earlier, which is why Saba's come in here. But I think it is hard to try to improve the attack brand or to improve the creativity when we've looked at it, like these guys just really aren't that great, going forward. The entire list of options that he has right now, none of them get into the top 6 sides. And so it is hard to see really attractive, creative football. It's hard to imagine us beating teams 3-4-0, even though I will at the end of the stream say 3-0 to the Spurs. Like, do I really believe it? No. Like, because we don't have the players, it seems like, to do it. Like I said earlier, like we have sometimes 3-on-1s, 3-on-2s, and we don't even get a shot on target. It goes out for like a goal kick, or it goes out for, a throw in or something. Like even at the end of the game there, like the best chance of the game, just quickly, Sean, like the best chance of the game, even though we played terribly, Pat Matasar whips in that cross to Brendan Johnson. Like the guy like scuffs at it. Like any other player, you see that happen. Like they take a touch, they lay it off, they make the right decision, and they execute it. Like we can't even execute simple chances, like chances that you would see every Premier League team put away. And that's the frustrating bit right now. And like, even though the football is not great, we can't even finish simple chances that come our way. So it's hard to really imagine us like creating and playing really well when we're missing tap-ins at this point.
So that's the big problem. Look, I think we've got a backline that's good enough to propel us into a title race if we had the right other sort of things around it. Yeah, of course, there's question marks around Vicario. I think the midfield in general, yeah, look, of course, you could do with a few more maybe reinforcements or a bit more quality in there, but in general, it'll get you to the top half. But the reality is, we've got a relegation standard, if not a bottom half of the table sort of front line, and that's where your problem lies with what we're seeing. That's where your big problem is.
What, as it is now, Dave, or even when a fully fit squad is back?
No, as it is now. I do think Madison coming back would make a huge difference in that number 10. I think Kulusevski, could solve your left wing problem to a large degree.
Solanke as well, right?
In my opinion. Solanke, I think, look,
we'll see,
he will be kept around. He will be kept around. But I think there's still question marks whether he can go and score the amount of goals we need. I think that's fair question marks around him. I think that's another area you still have to go and buy is another striker unless Muani comes good and we can get that deal done in the summer.
But here's the problem though, Dave, right? Like the market for strikers was, in fact, before just give me 5 seconds to launch into what you guys were saying before about the back line being so super strong. The reason why the back line looks so strong is because we're playing counter risk football. We're not throwing any caution to the wind. And when we do break forward, when you do get the ball to Kudus, and he's got 2 men on him, when we get it towards Odebear, who's doing better, he is doing better. I'm sure he's got a long way to go, but he's doing better. But he was never supposed to be starting left winger. So
agreed. Yeah,
we made a massive effort to try and get Savinho. It didn't work out. Obviously, we put all our eggs into that basket. So we have to go again and fix that in January. But at the moment, because of a combination of injuries and failed transfer policy in the summer, we don't have, and we can all agree, a strong enough forward line that's fully fit, or even a fully fit forward line still doesn't really cut the mustard in certain positions in the 9 or in the left winger spot. But because of that, that's a factor in the reality. But we still get the ball up there. But there's never anyone in the box. When Kudus does, he stands still. The ball gets to him. He stops. He has a breather. He takes a man on. He either wins the corner or he whips it in. If he doesn't win the corner and he whips it in, there's nobody in the box because I think that Thomas Frank is always playing to not lose at the moment. So I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but his priority of like making us more solid has included a massive risk off approach from not just the 6, but the second 6 or the double pivot, the 8, whatever you want to call it, in Bentancur or whoever else. And then you've got problems with like Bergvall running into blind alleys. But even if that was to change, you still don't have enough quality at the top end of the pitch. So you look in the January window and you say, well, let's go and get a striker. In the summer, there was the wettest market I've ever seen for quality strikers that were going to move house. They've all gone. They've all moved. And now there is very, very little. I made a top 10 list for my video yesterday, for my live stream or whatever it was that I did. I was on Football Inc. And I had to include players like Muniz from Fulham. I had to include players like Francolino from Midtjylland because like they're really Mark, what's his the guy, the Brazilian geezer who's playing at Ali, Marcos, what's his name? Marcus Leonardo.
Wi-Fi password strikers.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, like, who? I've even included players like Paqueta who aren't even forwards. There's nobody out there. Pavlidis, is he really the best that's out there? Samu Agahawa, is he really the best that's out there? I mean, they might be that's available, but you know what? They don't come with any guarantees. There's a hell of a lot of risk with those sorts of players. So if we're looking in the January window and think we have to go and get a striker to really amplify our chances of decent outcomes in the second half of the season, we might end up convincing ourselves to pay top money for a 6-year contract for another bozo. And I don't necessarily think that's the right idea. I think there's enough liquidity in the left wing space to be able to go and find someone. You can go and get a Fofana from a really struggling financially struggling Lyon. Right, John Texter's he's got 80 million of annual interest on his debts to Arias Capital. You might be able to go and get him. I doubt you'll be able to go and get a Yildiz, from Juve, or someone like a Leao. But like, there's enough players on the left wing that you can amplify your chances. But in the striker market, I really don't think that there is.
Well, that's why I was
dry as a nun's, you know what.
Well, that's why I was frustrated, because I remember I was on one of your shows there just after the summer, Sean. I was sort of saying the same thing. I think we missed the boat in the striker market, the amount of strikers that moved and stuff like that. And, you know, you're looking at teams, some of them are set up for the next 5-6 years with some of the front men that they've signed. And it's sort of like, again, I think we've left the problem too late in that regard. And I agree. I've made this point. I think, you know, that's why I'm sort of...
Ivan Toney. You're not going to get Ivan Toney. He's on a 500 grand a week tax-free.
Yeah, look. And I think there's also a thing that they have to stay out of the country for a year as well, you know, in order to not pay a huge tax bill. I think that's a massive part why Steven Gerrard didn't take the Rangers job, because you have to be out of the country for so long, and so you avoid a massive tax bill on that money you're earning. So, you know, for me, I don't think that one's a non-runner. And anyway, for me, it's not a runner until the summer, because you bring him in here in January. How fit is he? How much time do you have to get him up to speed and stuff like that? You know, we've been here before. I remember we brought Gareth Bale back. It was a long time before. You know, he only really came to the fore towards the end of the season because we had to get him back fit and everything else. And for me, I think that's why we're really hoping that Colin Muani can do the job, sort of stave off it until the summer. Take it down the road until the summer, huh?
Last 15 minutes, last 20 minutes when he came on against Villa, he looked like he's getting up to full fitness. I've got a sneaking suspicion that he might become like when Bale came back for his second attempt at Tottenham. And he came back in September or whenever it was, and he didn't really play until January. But then in the second half of that season, he really did contribute. I've got a feeling that maybe Colin Muani might just be a pretty good value asset. He might be pretty good in this as he gets up to full fitness.
He needs to be the answer to our problems this season, because that means then we can kick the striker thing down the road until the summer, which then you would hope there would be maybe more on the market for you. Like Muani, I was saying at the start of the stream, I went to bed with tears in my eyes. I went to bed with tears in my eyes because Muani showed link-up play, something I haven't seen Richarlison being able to do, Matisse Tell being able to do. He was more mobile across that front line, sometimes on the left, sometimes on the right, more than what Richarlison and that are as well. And for me, I'm really hoping this kid is the answer, at least to get us through to the end of the season. And if he is, we're in pole position to try and get a deal done, you know, which then maybe if he could be the answer to our problems, then happy days. And look, I'm glad that Thomas Frank has started him today, because I think he needed to with this run of games coming up. If we're going to get any points out of it, this guy, we need him to start scoring goals. And I think, you know, starting him today gives us a huge chance of pulling points from them games with him coming up to full fitness. And I know there's been a lot in the background, you know, going around WhatsApp chats and all that. Apparently there's problems with Muani behind the scenes. I don't buy into it. For me, I think this guy's going to be fully motivated. There's a World Cup at the end of the year. He's going to want to get into that France squad, which means he's going to have to play games. He's going to have to score goals. But in order to play games, you have to play well. So for me, I think hopefully Muani is the answer. But look, let's go through this lineup. We've got Vicario in goals. We've got Danzo and Van de Ven as your centre-backs. We've got Jed Spence at left back, Pedro Porro at right back. Then you go into the midfield. We've got Paulini and Bentancur as the double pivot. Fans, I've no doubt, are already going to start moaning about that selection. Then you have Kudos off the right. You also have, where's the Johnson off the left? And then you have Xavi through the middle with Kolo, Muani up front. Then in the bench, you have Anthony Kinski, Richarlison, Tell, Gray, Bergval, Udebur, Sarr, Scarlett, and Young Byfield yet again. Still no room in the starting lineup for Papa Matt Sarr. Interesting call. It looks like Thomas Frank is going to persist with Xavi. Some would argue that is the right call. So look, we'll go through the panel because I've no doubt everyone wants to get off and get stuff done before their own game and stuff like that, before their own watch-alongs and stuff. So Dermo will get your thoughts on the lineup and let's get your score prediction, lad.
Look, the back sort of 5-7 is sort of self-explanatory, isn't it? It's going to pick itself. I'm glad he's stuck with Xavi. I really am. So I think Xavi will come good. Over the moon, Colo get a start. I actually predicted him to get a start in my predicted lineup. So I'm actually quite pleased. I've been proven right for once. Johnson, why on God's green earth is he picking him? That fella couldn't kick a cow up the arse. I swear to God, he needs to go, and I don't ever see him in a Spurs shirt again. That's the only disappointment I have with that. I mean, seriously. Pardon, Dave?
That's a big change from where you were.
Yeah, he's really flipped all of a sudden.
What's made me flip with him is seeing him what we saw in that documentary with James Maddison. What we've seen, he hasn't been the same player. He's let last season get to his head, and he's walking around like I'm the big man instead of getting out the pitch and actually improving himself, trying to improve his ability. He's got talent, but he needs to improve it, and he's not doing it. He needs to kick up the arse, and Thomas Frank needs to take him into his dressing room and tell him if you don't perform, don't training harder, then you're not going to be picked. I think this is last chance saloon today for Johnson. Kudos, great signing. I think it's a good squad apart from Johnson, but I'm going for a 2-1 Spurs win today.
2-1 Spurs win. Well, hopefully with Muani in the lineup, there's a possibility of a couple of goals here today. I think that's what gives me a lot of optimism that hopefully you see maybe a little bit more rootless Tottenham today with Muani in the lineup. Stevie, let's get your thoughts on the lineup and let's get your score prediction, my man.
Yeah, isn't this the type of performance where everybody groans that Brennan Johnson's in the lineup and then all of a sudden he has a tap-in goal at the back post. So I'm not exactly thrilled with Brennan Johnson getting the start today. Me personally, I think this should be if he's going to run this formation, he should be sticking with Odegaard out there on the left-hand side. That being said, I'm actually over the moon about Kolo Muani getting a start today. Would rather have Xavi on the left-hand side, but that being said, I mean this is par for the course. For Thomas Frank, very organized and rock solid in the back, and we'll see exactly how this plays out moving forward. But that being said, I predicted a 2-2 draw yesterday. I'm going to stick with the 2-2 draw, and I guess my goal scorers today are going to be Kolo Muani and Xavi Simons.
Nice. So you've gone 2-2. Not sure, I wonder how Spurs fans will react to the draw here today. I definitely want the win. But look,
I do too. I do too, but it's the nature of the beast, man.
Look, to be fair, set pieces, Moises' team are known for set pieces. That's one route goal for them. That guy Njai, Ilman Njai, he's phenomenal. Every time he gets the ball, looks to run at players. I hope he's not lining up on Pedro Porro's side today. Hopefully he's up against Jed Spence. Jack Grealish due back. There is an opportunity there, but the back line has sort of been the catalyst for a lot of our points this season. So hopefully they can hold firm again tonight. I am putting your link in there along with Dermos. So guys, make sure you get across to all these channels and check them out and smash the subscribe button and show them some love. Shawnee, what's your thoughts on the lineup from Frank here today? What's your score prediction, buddy?
Yeah, I really like it. Obviously, in an ideal world, there'd be enough legs in Odegaard to have played him again, but he's played a lot of minutes recently. So, twice a week.
Came off injured as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he hurt his abdominal, didn't he? That's right. Yeah, or whatever it was. I like it. I wouldn't be surprised. I think that what Everton are now going to do is just treble up, quadruple up on Kudus because there's no need to worry about Johnson, so to speak. But if Kudus can still figure his way through it, there's a chance that Brennan Johnson is going to find himself at the back post for a tap in, a backdoor Johnson. I went for a 1-1 in the preamble, but given that I see Kolo Muani starting, which I think is going to be a handful, and Johnson, I think that there's a chance here that he might get one. I'm going to say 2. I'm going to change my tune and say 2-1 Tottenham, and I'm going to say Johnson for the winner. And Johnson again, ole ole.
Wow!
Thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, look, he had the chance to get the winner on Wednesday night, and he absolutely fluffed his line, hitting the guy's backside who had his ball back turned to the ball. So hopefully, he can tap it home today. Wayne Bonner says Dermot seen the light on Johnson. I think many fans are starting to wake up to Johnson. Look, at the end of it, I've always argued I think he's a very nice kid. You know, I don't have problems with his personality or anything like that. I just have questions around his quality and does he do 80% of what a winger should do? I'd argue no. And it's just real frustrating. I can understand, maybe it being forced to start Johnson today instead of Wilson Odegaard because, he came off injured the last day. I just worry again, should he have played Xavi off the left and Papama Sarr through the middle. But my big hope is that Muani can link up with Mohamed Kudus down this right-hand side and centrally, and hopefully we'll see a couple of goals today. But guys, it's a massive game today. Halloween right around the corner. No one wants to go into the spooky season, with doom and gloom. We need to win today. Hopefully we can get 3 points on the board and sort of just pick up that momentum that we gathered earlier on in the season, because I had sort of stalled a little, and this is what this game is about for me today. Trying to pick up that early season momentum we had, but also go into these big games with momentum. You do that, you go in there with a bit of belief. So massive, massive game for me today. But guys, we're going to call it an evening there. I've threw all the guys' links in there in the chat. Shawnee's Spurs Talk Show, Dermotron's THFC Till I Die, and also Steve's Stateside Footy as well. So make sure you get across and check them all out. That's it from us. We'll be back here in 35 minutes' time for the watch along. We'll see you all soon. And as always, come on, you Spurs. A massive thank you to all you guys at home for tuning in today, joining us. Really enjoyed today's show. And to everyone else, to all these people that have gone the extra mile as well. Harvey Burgess, Katie Davies, Danny Darko, Wayne Bonner, Dermotron, Rhino, Catman, Jess, Sava, and Wayne Bonner again. Really appreciate all the support, guys. We'll see you back here for the watch along. Come on, you Spurs. In the Thomas Frank so far.
Come on, the Frank. Slim Frank.